special needs trusts. Special needs trusts are established to provide supplemental assets for the benefit of a disabled person. And the key feature of a special needs trust is that government benefit programs do not count the assets that are in that trust against the disabled person, which allows them to continue to qualify for those government benefits. So whenever you're talking about special needs trusts, you're always going to be talking about government benefits. Like I said, the most important ones in this situation are Social Security disability income, supplemental security income, and Medicaid, all of which are what we would refer to as means-based programs. So when you go to apply for supplemental security income, we call that SSI, when you go to apply for SSI, the first thing the government is going to ask you to do is make a statement about the assets that are owned by that person. And if you have more than $2,000 in that person's name, you will be disqualified from that government benefit program. So the goal is, in setting up a special needs trust, the goal is to have a big pool of money that can be used for the benefit of a disabled person, such that the government does not recognize those assets when they're taking into account whether or not this person qualifies for those benefits. And as I was saying, the easiest way to start is from scratch, to start early. There's two kinds of special needs trusts. There's a self-settled special needs trust, and there's a third-party beneficiary trust. A self-settled special needs trust is when a disabled person with assets in their own name uses their own assets to set up a special needs trust for their own benefit. Those are much harder to set up. Their rules for compliance are much more difficult, and they're just harder to get approved and harder to maintain generally. A third-party beneficiary trust, for example, if you have a child that is a special needs child, and that child, prior to turning 18, has no assets in his name or her name, and you want to use your assets to provide for their well-being, there's a number of ways you could do that. You could give money directly to that disabled person. You could pay for things for that disabled person. You may die and they may inherit money from you and use that for their benefit. The problem is all of those things will disqualify you from government benefits that you might otherwise be entitled to. And so setting up a special needs trust, if you're a parent with a disabled child, you would set that trust up, and the rules for setting them up are pretty particular. And you would fund that trust with your own assets, and the trust would require you to only spend money on certain things. There's a good list of things that you can purchase, and a list that you want to avoid for things that you cannot purchase. So if the money is in the special needs trust, you cannot use that money to provide food. You can't pay a mortgage with it. You can't pay for that person's rent. You can't pay for any utilities. And that really takes away a lot of important things that the disabled person would need. But meanwhile, you're still qualifying for those government benefits. You need to use those benefits first to pay for the things that are excluded from payment from the special needs trust. And you spend your own money to pay for things for that disabled person. The answer is sometimes. There's a set of rules called in-kind distribution rules. So the government entity that is providing the benefits is always looking to see what the assets of the disabled person are. They're always checking, do they have more than $2,000? Are they getting more than X amount of income? And if you were to pay out of your own pocket for the benefit of that disabled person, they may deem that what's called an in-kind distribution. So the person may still have no assets to their name, but if the government entity finds out, Social Security finds out that you're paying the rent on behalf of that person, they will, through a process called deeming, they will deem that income to the beneficiary, and that will go against you when they go to count up your assets and your income. Let me give you a couple of things that you can use money from a trust for. These are what we would call non-countable resources. You can use that money to purchase a home. You can buy household goods, tools, furniture, a handicap van, durable medical equipment, television, radio, and cable service, audio and visual equipment, communications, utilities, recreational equipment, musical instruments. You can distribute assets from this trust to provide for things like home improvements, travel, recreation, medical insurance, utility bills, vacations, tax payments, medical treatment, and the list goes on. Essentially, anytime you've done well to create a special needs trust, if you ever want to pay anything out of that trust, you really just need to take a very good look at a long laundry list of things that you can and can't do. Some of those things you may need help from an attorney with. Other things are pretty straightforward. But the key thing behind all that is keeping great records. Keeping great records of all the income and all the receipts and all the expenditures will save you a lot of hassle in dealing with government agencies and the clerk of court especially.